Okay, I would like to call this meeting of the Urbana Plan Commission to order. We are absent our chair tonight, so we'll need to vote on an acting chair. Do I have a motion? Is it green?
No, I don't.
There you go.
Okay, I don't have a green light. I nominate Lou to be chair tonight.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So I will call roll now. Okay, Mr. Allred, Mr. Andreessen,
Here.
Mr. Fell,
Here.
Mr. Hopkins, Ms. McFarland,
Present.
Ms. Sims,
Here.
Ms. Yu. There are none.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, the ayes have it.
Tom Clarkson on behalf of Urbana Country Club to rezone 601 Killarney Avenue from B3 General Business to R4 Medium Density Multifamily Residential.
Mr. Chairman, before we start the case, I will recuse myself from the case. We have worked on the property before and possibility way in the future. Thank you.
Tom Clarkson on.
Thank you. The proposed rezoning would permit the expansion of the adjacent country club, including construction of a maintenance building on the property. Staff recommend approving the proposed rezoning as it satisfies the rezoning criteria. The site is approximately 4.7 acres and is located east of the Lincoln Commerce Center Commercial Park on the east side of Killarney Street. Killarney Street's here. Here is the subject property in the hatching. The property and the adjacent property to the north, also owned by the club, are zoned B3 general business and are undeveloped. The surrounding land is a mix of B3, IN1 light industrial, CRE, conservation, recreation, education, R4, medium density multiple family residential, and county ag 2. The applicant wants to construct a new maintenance building for the country club on this property. As an accessory use for the country club, the parcel must have a zoning classification that permits the principal use country club. The current B3 zoning does not permit country clubs. The proposed R4 district does permit them. Here we have some aerials. This is the general area. The subject property is here. Woodlawn Cemetery is directly to the south, with Crystal Lake Park and Busey Woods further south. We have the country club playing area to the east of the subject property, and further to the southeast, the country club continues. The existing current maintenance building is located here at the cursor at the end of this access drive along, I believe, Saline Branch drainage ditch. This is the GIS version of the map. This is a little easier to see. The city corporation limit cuts around the east point of this property, excludes Woodlawn Cemetery, and all this out here is in the county. The city picks up back over here and back over here to the far east. So basically the majority of the country club is in the county. Here is a more recent aerial photograph of the property. Again, you can see the existing maintenance building here along the Saline drainage ditch and Interstate 74 and Lincoln Avenue. Some zoning overlays. You can see the B3 here in red and the IN1 in the light gray, the CRE down here in the city, R1 and R3 to the far east. And then a couple of photographs. The upper one is looking south from the north end of the property towards the tree line. Looking on the other side is Woodlawn Cemetery. The commercial park is on the right, on the west side. And then the lower picture is looking north towards businesses and Interstate 74. Killarney Avenue is here on the west. The property has been vacant since at least 1940. It's never been developed. The Urbana Country Club was built in 1922. The proposed rezoning would be in line with the future land use designation of park in Urbana's 2005 comprehensive plan, which, quote, includes all active and passive parklands, public recreation centers, and golf courses. So we've got park here in the little darker green. This is institutional. And then we've got a mix of multifamily, light industrial, and regional business. Staff reviewed the request with respect to the 8 LaSalle and Sinclair rezoning criteria. That analysis is in the staff report. Overall, the request meets all 8 criteria for rezoning. The findings summarize the staff analysis of the rezoning criteria, including, first, that the proposed rezoning to R4 would be compatible with the park future land use designation by the 2005 comprehensive plan, as it would allow both park uses and residential uses. Second, that the proposed rezoning would be compatible with the adjacent CRE and County Ag 2 zoning districts. Third, that the public would benefit from the parcel being developed into any compatible use, as it has always been either agricultural or undeveloped. And finally, the proposed zoning would allow for residential uses in general, as well as country clubs and parks, which aligns with the existing land uses and zoning in the surrounding area and with the 2005 comprehensive plan. The Plan Commission has the following options in Plan Case 2477M23. First, to forward the case to City Council with a recommendation to approve the rezoning request, or to forward the case to City Council with a recommendation to deny the rezoning request. Staff recommends that Plan Commission forward the case to City Council with a recommendation to approve the request to rezone 601 Killarney Street from B3 to R4 in Plan Case number 2477M23 for the reasons articulated in the staff report. Let's see. Does the petitioner wish to make a presentation or present evidence?
Hi, I'm Tom Clarkson. I don't really have any more evidence to present because they've done a great job. They've laid this all out. So we've had some discussion with staff whether we really even needed to do this, but it's their opinion we do. So we want to be very cooperative and make this happen. I think either way, in the existing zoning, it's compatible with the surrounding neighbors and the use would fit with that way. But if it's country club and your country clubs fall within residential, okay, it fits that way too. So I think we can go either way on this, is what I'm saying. So, after, hopefully you will approve this and recommend it for approval with the city council. I would probably like to have some continued discussion with, Mr. Garcia and Marcus here to see which way we really want to go with it afterwards. But in the meantime.
Wait a minute, which way you want to go, meaning what?
Or if our intended use fits the business, or we want to stick and have it rezoned residential.
Okay, I'm a little confused here.
We want to make it work. However it makes the city of Urbana happy, we want to make it work.
Okay. All right, any questions from commission? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else wish to address the commission?
Can I just get a clarification? So am I right, the proposal is to, the recommendation from the staff report is to approve the recommended rezoning to the, what, R4?
Yes.
Okay, so that, I just want to, okay. That's this, okay, sorry, I just wanted to be sure, okay.
Okay, other questions for staff? Okay, so we close the public input, and it's now time for discussion or a motion. Can I get a motion?
I motion to pass.
Okay, it's 2477M23.
I motion to pass plan case 2477 M23.
Okay, can I get a second?
I second it.
Okay, any further discussion before we vote? Okay, call a vote.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Ms. McFarland,
Yes.
Ms. Sims,
Yes.
Mr. Andreessen.
Yes.
Okay, so that will be a recommendation to council, which will go to council on,
September, it'll go to Committee of the Whole on September 18th.
okay. Okay, there's no unfinished business, there's no new public hearings, no new business, public input. I don't see anybody. Staff report.
There is no staff report.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
Did the tiny homes case go to the council?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it did. And that passed with, let me see if I can recall the conditions. So one of the recommended conditions Plan Commission had was that they hold another public meeting. They had already done that by that point. So the city council did not need to include that in there. Although they did add another condition that for the final planned unit development, they do hold another public meeting, if that makes sense.
Okay, and the condition that no permit could be granted,
That
Till the
was, yeah, so that condition was removed because they did have two buildings that they could construct as a by right. So that condition was removed. And then the other conditions were slightly modified, just to clarify. So there was one condition that the final planned unit development, that the final site plan be responsive to concerns of the neighbors. We just kind of tightened up the language on that between Plan Commission and Council, so that condition was still in there. And they were granted the parking waiver. I believe that covers all of it.
okay. Okay, so now we go into a study session.
So Andrea Rudy and Tarek Azim are going to present some results from our latest round of engagement for the comprehensive plan. So if you'll recall, we were using an online software, and we also did in-person activities that mirrored the online software that we were using, or the online activity that we had put together. So I will stop talking once they pull this up, but that's the intro. And I would like to note for the record that Mr. Fell has returned us on the dais. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to update you on where we're at with the comprehensive plan. And as you know, I'm Andrea Rudy. I'm Senior Advisor for Integrated Strategy Development. And I also have with me, as Kevin stated, Tariq Azim, and I'm going to have him give you a little background. Tariq joined us, has it been 2 months?
6 weeks.
6 weeks ago, and it was perfect timing for us because he was able to do the analysis for us on our last exercise, the balancing act exercise. So I'll let Tariq just give some background so that you'll get to know him.
All right, well, thank you to both Kevin, can you hear me? And Andrea for that. So again, my name is Tariq. I recently joined the city. I took Will Kachowski's old job. Will is now been promoted, so that I think that's a good thing. I am not new to Urbana, although I'm new to the city of Urbana. I was born here, so at Mercy Hospital when it was Mercy Hospital. Yeah, so that dates me a little bit. Yes, yeah. My parents actually met at the U of I, and my mom's parents met at the U of I. So a long and not terribly sordid history. But it's great to be here and look forward to working with you all.
Could you explain your job again? Because I don't know what the person you replaced job was.
Sure. So I think a great way of thinking about it is Will's old job and my current job sit at the nexus of a lot of different data that typically doesn't get integrated. So I don't think we're quite in big data territory just yet, but if you can imagine, there are often projects that require financial data, even HR data, GIS data, that sometimes individual departments don't have the scope or purview for, and so our job is to kind of step in the middle and be that glue or that mortar to help bring it all together.
And his title is management analyst for what that means, so he covers a lot of territory with that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. So just want to kind of give an update. It's been a while since we've been before the Plan Commission, but to talk more about where we've been so far, I thought that was a good place to start. So as you remember, we did our first phase of community engagement, which was really started out as an online tool that we had where people could post on an idea wall, places map, there was a survey, and then we took it out to the communities and did some door-to-door. And we published that comprehensive report in October of 2022, when we can't, yeah, 2022, that's right. Then after that, we focused on what the existing conditions were in Urbana, and you remember we presented Examine Urbana, and it's been a great background as we went to our next exercise so that we referred people to that so that they could learn about the city before they start thinking about how they would like the city to spend their money. So that was the phase. We completed Examine Urbana. That was released this spring. And so then we started with our next phase of community engagement, which was a spending priority exercise. And that's what we're here for tonight. We'd like to update you on that. So you can see the little bubble there, we are here. So we engaged the community in prioritizing the city's spending, and now we're summarizing that feedback for you and the council. The council heard this presentation a week ago, Monday. Unfortunately, that was it was supposed to be after the Plan Commission, and due to the lack of quorum, we're now postponing this. So this is where we are right now. Okay. So Balancing Act was launched on June 1st, and it was a software. Essentially, that's what it started out to be, just a software where we people could go on and they could prioritize what they wanted the city to spend money on, and then actually had $100 to spend on different priorities. So the first part of that activity was to pick the top 3 out of 7 topics that they thought were most important, and I'll show you those topics just to refresh your memory. But the topics were taken from issues that were raised by the community in the first phase, also staff feedback that we received, and then just what was going on, just in current events affected those topics. There was also a Learn More button that they could press to learn about those topics, and we had 67 online in-person respondents to that exercise. Then the spending priority exercise, this is where everyone was given $100, and there were several options to choose from to spend your money on, which exceeded $100, of course. But they were built around the 5 themes that came from the first round of community engagement, and I'll go over those as well. We also had an info button where they could learn more about those topics and what could be included in the different options that they could select. But the nice thing about the online version, they could immediately see where they stood with their budget, and they could submit submit a deficit budget, meaning they hadn't spent all their money, but they could not overspend their money. So they really had to decide what was most important to them. So we'll get into the exercise itself. So the first one was the top priorities, and this is how the screen looked. It's been taken down just because we don't want people to keep adding after we've already analyzed the data, after Tarek has done that for us. So we had 7 priorities to choose from: affordable and diverse housing, safe and accessible transportation, environmental sustainability, a strong local economy, transparent and effective governance, safe and healthy communities, and cultural vibrancy. And they just had to select them. And the next slide. So there were different multiple ways we could look at that data and rank them, but it didn't matter what approach we used. We still came up with the same top 3 priorities, and we put them in alphabetical order for you. We'll go through that data a little more in detail, but the top 3 priorities were affordable and diverse housing, safe and healthy community, and strong local economy. So this is where this slide shows the ranking of those. So as you can imagine, of the top 3, some people would put it as number 1. Some people might put safe and healthy community as number 3. So we just looked at those top 3 answers and weighted them to see how they would come out in that priority. So safe and healthy community and strong local economy came out as a dead heat, and affordable and diverse housing then came in as number 3. So then we wanted to just give you some background on the zip codes. So people had the choice of putting in their zip code. We didn't use street address as we had in our first exercise because we found out people would drop out and not answer that. We didn't really feel like that was as important, but we did want to at least put in their zip code. And we did have people from other zip codes as well. But for this exercise, I think what this slide shows is it really was representative of our population in Urbana as far as which zip codes. They were very close in representation. So then we also looked at the age of our respondents. So we did ask them for a range of age. And as you can see also, it's pretty representative of the registered voters in Urbana. And so even though we did this during the summer when the student population is, of course, very low, you can see it's still pretty representative of that. I mean, yes, it's a little down, but we wanted to remind everybody that the goal of this activity was to really get information and input from those that traditionally are underrepresented in speaking with their government. So then we have the second activity. So these were the 5 themes, the ones that are highlighted in color. Those were the 5 themes that came out of our first round of community engagement that we reported on in October of 2022. So housing in neighborhoods, and then under each of those, they were given options that would fit into that category, knowing that these weren't, it wasn't a representative number of options, but to give them a flavor for what could be in that category. They were assigned, we as staff assigned dollar amounts to those, and that was based on whether there were hard dollar costs involved in selecting that option, or it could be staff hours that were involved in that option. So for instance, you could see invest in safer, more accessible transportation. You can imagine there's a higher dollar cost with that, as well as man hours, so that's why it reflects a $35 amount versus a lower amount. So these were the different choices that they had for each of the different themes, and you can kind of quickly go over those. And so this was the outcome of the rankings, and this was the online version. We also did an in-person version that we're going to go over as well, but this is the online version. And as you remember, we had 65 people that participated in the survey. And so this shows you what was most important to that. Down at the bottom are the 5 categories that we talked about each theme. And so above that, it represents the same color. You can see what the options were and how they spent their money. So in this case, housing and neighborhoods got the highest level of votes that people prioritized. So it's interesting. I might have Tarek add some flavor to that. Also, just about what some of the choices people made and how it influenced this slide.
Sure. I think just in general, if you'll remember back to the original slide, top 3 priorities were, going to see that reflected here, so there should be. I think when we get a little bit farther into the presentation, going to see some interesting differences in terms of what different residents. That is part of the challenge, is there is no average Urbana resident, right? I noticed that I'm not on, sorry guys. And that represents a challenge in and of itself, serving different communities.
Great, thank you. So this goes back to the 5 categories and lumping those selections that you just saw, the different options, and rolling those into the 5 themes. So again, housing and neighborhoods, you can see, got the majority of the votes, but they're all pretty much in line. The last 2 drop off a little bit, community health and safety and city and community services. But you can see what the top priorities are for spending. And again, looking at zip codes, it's pretty representative, 43 to 41, 57 to 59, as well as the registered voters. Again, it's very comparable, very representative, I think, of our population. So then we realized that we're still getting kind of the same audience. Whenever we do anything online, it really excludes a lot of people. And so we took it upon ourselves to make this into an in-person game, and the Balancing Act folks had never seen that done before. They're going to use this as a model going forward. So I'll show you some slides that actually show you what that game board looked like. But we realized that we really wanted to go out into the community and try to get additional input. So this is kind of a busy slide, but it's not as bad as it looks. We did an event in every one of the city wards, and we selected locations where we felt like we could reach people, again, that we don't normally hear from. So instead of the online, everybody getting $100 to spend and seeing that happen, we actually had physical Banabucks, we called them, and they were in different denominations, and they put them into, if you can see this slide down at or the picture down at the bottom, we called them buckets. We did have some actual buckets because we had this game board in different locations. We had more than one. But people voted, and they put their money into that bucket for that particular option that they voted for. So they were color-coded too by the 5 themes and then the different options. And we had, you can see this middle, the one with the dotted lines around it, we had, instead of the info button, we actually had it explained on a little card. And so inside each bucket, they could pull that out. If they didn't understand what that was for, they could pull that out and read. So this is an example of the card for decreasing property taxes, what that might include. So people could read that before they voted. So in this exercise, the in-person, we had 39 in-person participants complete it, and then 24 additional people. We talked with them about that, and they were given a QR code to hopefully go back and do it online. Maybe they either didn't have time, or in the case of the event that was at Lehrman Court, it was, the heat index was like today, not quite as high, but it was that spell we had, and so people readily took the QR code and went back to their air conditioning. But they did hear all about it before they did that. So these are, of course, the 7 wards. We got the map here so you can see where those are and where the locations we held in each of the wards. So in the case of Ward 1, we were at Channing Murray Foundation, which of course is on campus, even though there weren't a lot of people on campus. 25 o'clock, which is downtown, Dr. Martin Luther King School. We had it at the Freedom School Tiger Academy, which is across from the middle school on Vine Street. Town and Country Apartments. We also had Aspen Court and then Steer Place. And for Ward 6, the original location for that was going to be at Salt and Light, and we had to change that location. Some people we felt like might have been confused, and so we held another one and specifically advertised that again. One of the things we did with each of the wards is we took a radius around that location and we mailed it to the households there. So I've got that information. It's not in here, but I've got the information of how many households were involved in that because we really did want the surrounding area to come, not just the residents, like for instance at Aspen Court, for instance, we mailed to the entire radius. And then Steer Place, we also were at Steer Place. So here's just a variety of pictures. Some were outside, some were inside. Town and Country and Aspen Court, we had outside. Just a variety of people coming up, and it was real rewarding to see the interest that people had in doing the exercise. So then this is going to be the data by ward. And as you remember, we only had 39 actually complete it. And so this shows you by ward how many people really participated in it, because we wanted full disclosure that, you know, what this represents. So in Ward 1, the top 3 vote getters, and these are vote getters for the different options. And so you can see those here. And they fell into the categories of the housing and neighborhoods, transportation and infrastructure, and community health and safety. Okay. So it was really a tie there. Ward 2, the top vote getter was eliminating barriers for planned neighborhoods, followed by the focus on better community engagement. And then we had a tie, 3-way tie for the third spot. You can see we skipped Ward 3, and that was because no one showed up at Dr. King Elementary for that one. However, also that evening was the tiny homes presentation. Ours had been scheduled for quite a while, and we'd sent out the mailers, so we went and held it, but nobody came. So we're doing another one that will be held later in September, and we hope to use that not just for that exercise, so they have a chance to participate in that, but maybe have a preview for some of the other drafting that we've done on the plan at that time. So hopefully it'll still be a rewarding event for them as well. Ward 4, you can see this, it's tied across. We had one person show up. However, that one person was so engaged, we spent the whole hour. Kimberly was there. Kevin, were you there at that one? Anyway, we had several of us there. Well, anyway, Marcus, I think you were there, weren't you, at that one? The one at Freedom School on Vine Street? Okay, well, Lily and I were there at that point. But anyway, only one person showed up, but he really had a lot of great information that he shared, and so it was engaging as well. But so these are the 5 topics that he had picked. And then Ward 5, you can see that we had a tie for the top 2 in supporting healthy community initiatives, as well as diversify housing options throughout the city, and then followed by the 2 at the 4 level. And then Ward 6, we had more people there because we ended up doing 2 events. So we were at Aspen Court, and then we held one at City Hall to make up for the Salt and Light one. So we had a few more participants in that. You can see the top vote being investing in neighborhood safety, and followed by diversified housing options, and then the better community engagement. Okay. And then finally, Ward 7, investing in safer neighborhoods, and followed by a tie between investing in neighborhood safety and supporting healthy community initiatives. Oops, oh, the slide's missing. The slides we did today. They're not in here. We apologize. We added to this presentation and did 2 more slides where we did a comparison between in-person and the in-person and the online version. I'm so sorry. I discombobulated here because the slides aren't here. We just did these 2 today, and between the 2 of us, I think we can piece it together what the information was in there. But what we wanted to show was the differences. Did it make a difference if they were online or in person? What issues, were there different issues that they talked about, and then just the demographics, et cetera. So I might let Tarek dive into that a little bit, because he was more heavily into that as far as me putting him into nice graphics, which unfortunately aren't here.
I don't know how that happened. In any case, I will try to talk to it. And this on. So in terms of the split overall between online participants or respondents and people who were in the wards where we collected information there, 60% of the folks were actually in person or in the wards, and 40% were online. So it was a pretty even mix. You know, again, this is not a rigorous, right, randomized controlled test like you do for pharmaceuticals, where you're ingesting things, right? We're just trying to get some good qualitative and directional data. And so within those two groups, I think the biggest difference that we saw was that the folks that in the wards were more focused on housing and neighborhoods, right?
Right.
In particular, and the folks online, not that they weren't interested in housing and neighborhoods, but they were more interested, if I remember correctly, in community health and safety, right?
Correct.
And so those were the two big swings. The other three categories that you see, if you go up, if you can back up one page so they maybe can see those categories down at the bottom, or if you want to go to another page, that was really the big swing. When it came to transportation and infrastructure, city services, or cultural and economic vibrancy, both groups are pretty similar. Those were probably the big takeaways.
Yeah, I
There
would
was-
say,
yeah,
and then also saying that there's really not a lot of difference. I mean, the percentage points differences would be, like 3%. We didn't have large variances between them at all. And again, the sample size being what it was, you didn't see a huge variance. But so overall, I would say, yes, there wasn't a lot of difference between whether they did it in person or online. So then that leads us to where we're still headed. So let me go back to the slide at the end is similar to the slide you saw at the beginning. We've just grayed out everything we've had. And so I said we're at the feedback point at this time. So now we're into the next phase where we're going to articulate a vision and start drafting goals and objectives. The software that we're going to use for this is called Encode Plus, and it's enables us to go live so that the public can actually see what we've drafted and can review it live as we're going through it. It also allows multiple users to use it at the same time, which our first round of drafting for the reports, we couldn't do that. And so this allows us to make comments, and it retains all the previous versions as well, so it's really nice. But like I said, what it'll allow us to do is that the community can give us feedback online. We will be able to do it other versions. Like you said, we know we can't always rely on online because a lot of people aren't engaged that way. So we'll still be going out and letting people review. We'll have some events where people can actually see what we've written. And that's what I was talking about with the Ward 3 that wasn't, where no one showed up. We could do something there where they could view that as well. So we still want to be able to have that in-person input, but this will allow us to really get some early feedback that when we go out to the in-person, I think it'll be more meaningful. So that's our next stage. We really hope to have a draft here in the next maybe 4 to 5 months, have a draft that can be reviewed and studied and then be out for community input. But all along the way, we'll have different pieces of it that we'll parcel out to get feedback on before that final draft gets out for review. So be glad to entertain any questions, and I apologize, I will follow up and send everybody the full presentation that has the 2 slides that Tarek did a good job of summarizing verbally, but we'll make sure you get those as well. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to briefing you in the future. And if you have any questions regarding the slides you received, please contact me directly, and I'll make sure Tarek's in the loop.
Can I
Yes,
just-
Karen.
So I know this is a newer process, whatever, but in terms of participation rates, I know it's been, 10 years since this process has happened?
Yeah, like 20.
20 years since this process. Is it similar in terms of when you look at the overall amount of feedback that you're getting? And I know it's hard to compare time or whatever, but I guess when I think about a representative sample from like a study, right? We would be looking at like an N as a percentage of the population. So I just wonder, does it feel like, does it feel like you've gotten enough feedback? Does it feel like it is comparable of other communities who've done a similar process? Would it be like an evaluation tool around engagement to say, next time we do it, if we got 100 people participating, because you tried to do it as democratic and openly as possible, would you want, you know, hypothetically in 10 years, at least 250 people? Like, I guess I'm trying to figure out like how to evaluate. It's a robust effort, but I don't know how to evaluate its utility, you know,
You want to tackle that a little bit? We've talked about that in depth. No, you're right on point. We've talked about that in depth, and I'll let Tarek address that.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. So I think your instinct is exactly right, that at some level we all gravitate toward something with some sort of definable statistical significance, right? That would be the ideal. Arguably, that would require a minimum of 30 people per ward, and those people would have to be recruited and be representative, and you would have to have staff time doing that recruiting. Then you probably need more than 30 people because people drop out, and you would have to manage what's called managing the static, and that's 200 people. It's kind of a mess, right? And we would really have had to set that up and decided ahead of time a lot of what we are, in fact, trying to find out right now with these, what I would call a little bit more exploratory pieces of research. But to answer your fundamental question, this isn't like a pharmaceutical study, right? Nobody's going to be ingesting anything and putting themselves in danger, right? So I think what we're looking for is something a little bit more directional and helping us just guide the comprehensive planning process along with a large number of other data points that we will be getting from best practices, from norms, feedback from people in the industry as well. Did that answer your question? Okay, great. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. And one thing I think we didn't cover as well is that, you know, this last piece that we're talking about, all the other pieces that we've done, it's just building on those. So there are various tools that we have used. But you asked another question I thought was insightful is, okay, yeah, when we did this again, what would you do? Part of our process would happen during COVID. And so, you know, that was the heavy reliance initially on the online because we couldn't physically get out. But as soon as we could, we went out on the street. And so phase one did have in person. And, you know, it's very valuable information. I think people are very frank with you. And people are sometimes hesitant when we were going door to door in the first one because they think, oh my gosh, the city's after me, they're going to issue me a citation for something. And then once they realize that you're there for their opinions, it was, you know, very rewarding. I think there was a lot of goodwill in that. In this in-person exercise, they were voluntarily coming up and participating. And like I'll never forget at Aspen Court, it was so hot. And people were engaged and really, you know, we're appreciative that you're listening, but yet they had, they were so well informed. I mean, I don't want to say I was surprised, but it was just rewarding to hear that people really were interested in advancing their community and what it's going to be in the future, and they wanted to share that. So would we do things differently? There's some components, of course, we would still want to do, and it's that one-on-one piece that I think really is what it's all about, and getting people involved, especially the ones that we don't normally hear from. Any other questions? Great. Well, again, we'll send this out to you, and please give us your feedback. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Time is it?
7:52.
Adjourned at 7:52.